right away, there are a couple of countries globally who are really leading the stage. Thanks to their business development, economic development, social development, and so on. And what we see right now is that Apple, Samsung, Flipkart, and just the few names from the growing list of companies that shifted business or production to India this year. And clearly, India is rising fast on the global economic map, and from geography to taxes or even to supply chain, there are plenty of reasons behind this trend. And today, we will hear directly from an insider about what draws global business to India, what it means to run a company there, and what lessons we can all take away. I'm really pleased to introduce our speaker, a tech entrepreneur from India with 20 years in business, Saurabh Gupta, co-founder and CPTO at Frogo, a supply chain and logistics startup. Saurabh, welcome and thanks for joining.
Thank you so much, Renata. I'm glad to be here, and thanks for introducing me in such a glorious way.
Thanks a lot. So basically, the idea for today's webinar is about one of the most important drivers of change in business right now, which is data. And since AI entered the market, data has been called its secret ingredient, kind of oil. But what we are focusing on today is even more interesting. It's how India's data-driven business culture empowers the economy and attracts investors. Saurabh, let's start from the roots. You've held leadership roles at Michelin and Oracle. You've written books on data and leadership and even worked with digital analytics products and manufacturing, agri-tech and retail. What curiosity drives you to explore such diverse sectors? Tell us.
Well, I think what really drives me is the human impact of data, whether it is at the manufacturing unit, the engineers, whether they're the farmers on the field, the plant supervisors, or if it may be a retail customer. Everything generates data, everything consumes data, and each one of them have the view about how the data is helping them day in day out. So how does data influence these decisions on the ground for a variety of roles that we see across all the industries and sectors? And I think I've been always very curious about how technology plays the role, whether it is, and we all talk about digital transformation, how to connect these points, these touch points digitally. Are they integrated, connected? Is the flow of data seamless from one system to another? I think that this fascinates me a lot. And it all started with the working when you work with the infrastructure, when you work with the technology. What excites you, that how to make this more cohesive and more integrated, so that you get one unified picture of data with a variety of sectors and industries. So I think that passion converted into curiosity. And over the time, as and when you get a chance to work with different industries, you get the view that okay, these are the different ways the world works. Finally, it comes down to a set of digital infrastructure, data and technology, and with the AI pouring in from the last decades or so, uh, the data has become much more meaningful. So earlier, if something was just a data trace, uh, now it holds a certain value of data, a certain value, business value, and in different contexts, this business value also changes. So I think I'm more than happy to continue this passion for another 20 years from now.
Thanks a lot, Sarah, for sharing your thoughts so far. I'm sure that a lot of people in the industry will support you on this way because self-development and lifelong learning really proves the idea of long-term success. And it's really interesting to see how little the core has changed. 15 years ago, companies turned to data for decision making. 10 years ago, they also did the same. And today, we also see that data still sits at the heart of every business choice. Yet, relying on data doesn't always mean trusting it. So, this is the question regarding the trust to data. In your experience, what's the biggest barrier Indian companies face when building trust in their data, and how can leaders address this barrier?
Well, I think the biggest hurdle I've seen, and not just about India, but globally, that data is considered as the aftermath of a certain
Mm-hmm.
process. It all depends on us, the business champions, and the technology translators, that how do you extract the value of this data piece. So the and one of the biggest challenge in what I just said is because the ownership is quite fragmented.
Mm-hmm.
Someone, or say machines, devices, or systems that produce data, they don't know how to squeeze the data and extract the value out of it, versus the people who are knowledgeable in playing around with the data. They don't have the understanding about what is the business context behind certain value of data. For example, if I get a data sheet which talks about certain numbers, right, for me as a technologist it might be just numbers, but for the business sponsors or say business teams, it may hold a different value. It may be speed, it may be RPM, it may be temperature reading, it may be anything else. So unless until these two words come together and add the business value to that data, I think that is where the magic starts. And that is where we start thinking about how to put this data to use and make meaning out of it. And you name the technology. I mean, everything starts with digital and data. AI is what we know. Blockchain is what still under the current is going on. And lot of like Web3, crypto, all of these technologies have the underlying layer, which is the data. And once this the marination of business with the data happens, that is where the application of the data starts. Now leaders can address this by reframing data into the business frames, and they can have the shared leadership, shared sponsorship and ownership, something that we used to call as the stewardship about for of the data, that who holds the accountability for a certain data system. uh, and one of the changes I have seen coming up in the large corporates is to have the combined ownership of the data, not just with the business teams, but it falls under governance to ensure that the data integrity is remains intact. And whatever the data gets collected in the system, it remains in the custody of both the owners, both the stewards, whether it is from the business as well as from the tech teams. So long story short, to your question, I think the biggest challenge that we have seen is to have the governance of the data and the treatment of the data at the time of generation, when it is the source of truth, and when it is ready to be consumed by the downstream applications.
There is nothing to disagree with, to be honest, or because I bet that a lot of companies, when it comes to, say, corporate decision making, not just department based decision making, it really means for them to get access to their internal data from different departments to see this integrity, right? Cross border and understanding of potential opportunities between departments, but for the entire organization itself, for the long term development. So, I bet that the results your country achieved already by this time are based on the wise usage of data and data application inside the decision-making processes, and not only. Right away, India is on track to become a $5 trillion economy by 2027, already in almost 2 years. And seems like to keep moving forward, mid-sized firms and startups need to make a data part of everyday work, not just a back office function. So we've discussed with you that practically it's useful to give access to data, not only on the level of department, but also on the level of the entire organization, right? Given this integrity. Maybe you could share some other recommendations, like practical first steps to democratize data analytics and improve data literacy, because talking about data usage is one thing. However, how you should start and do these first steps in order to really train this data literacy inside the organization, this is absolutely another story. And sometimes it's way more challenging.
Yeah, and trust me, this is my favorite topic. Uh, the data literacy and the data democratization. Uh, no matter how much AI we speak and we experiment with, if that doesn't get the support of the business, it's all useless. The state of art models just die down flat if they don't have the data integrity and the data readiness. And the biggest challenge is that one of the biggest challenges, I would say, is that the companies, the organization wait for that one final implementations of AI or a data product, which just delays the entire process, right? And this is the origin, this is the need why we need to have the data democratization in place, or say the strategy in place. Now, data democratization has two phases. One is who needs to access what sort of data. The other, how to make sure that governance doesn't takes a hit when the data democratization is happening, or say data is getting democratized through different sources, through different techniques. So it requires a holistic view that how the data needs to be democratized. Now, if the time when democratization of data started, the challenge was that everyone will be asking the data without thinking whether they really need it or not, right? So we need to identify who are those power users who needs the access of data in the right format. And these people could be citizen data scientists or citizen data analysts who are sitting in the business teams on the business departments. But if given the opportunity to work with data, they might be very handy in day-to-day business decisions and business calls. Initially, it started with business reporting, business intelligence, and over the time, I think the industry found that these guys have caught up enough to play around with the data. So different techniques. One is the most common is to hand them over a very, a low code no code type of a platform with access based on what their business wants to have, and that will be a much controlled access, and let them play around with the SQL queries or taking an export, doing some Excel based analysis. Then there are certain advanced levels who want to have who can just not just write SQL queries but also build models, very lightweight ML models, something like a regression, logistic regression, and based on that they can do some smart predictions. So they might be getting access to this data, and once they plan to industrialize, they might be needing the API support as well, so that the the integration is proper in their data pipelines. So that is one way to think about the data democratization for the teams who have a good know-how about the data. Now, coming to the other part where the business teams are ambitious, but they are not, hands-on with the data exercises, with the SQL queries or playing around with the Excel sheets. For them, I believe that it's better to give them, the data visualization dashboards, uh, the notifications, the so that they get access, they get the view of the data which they really need, right? So, and I think over the last 5 or 6 years, I wouldn't go back a decade when the data access was restricted to certain authorized people in the company, and they will only get access to the data. Rest everyone will be probably requesting the data as and when they need. Now,
Mhm.
this created a huge rift within the organizations, and that is where you would see that business teams would be treated different, while the technology teams would have a different view and access of the data. But in the last 5 or 6 years, I think it has changed completely. Companies are taking a very positive and tangible steps to make sure that data is accessible to everyone in the organization, irrespective of their roles. However, keeping everything within the boundaries, within the guardrails of the governance. And as I said in my previous point, that data stewardship is gaining a lot of popularity in the roles. So once, and now combining these all these 3 points, data stewardship, data governance, they take care of who accesses what, while the folks who are building the data democratization layers, they would be more concerned about what methods, channels are required based on the needs of the power users and the citizen data folks in the organization, API or no code platforms, so that they feel comfortable in working with the data day in day out.
Fully agree. And it's the matter of choice for the company, right? Whether they select to start with no code because they have no one on their team to deal with data. And this ready-made dashboards, reporting tools inside CRM, ERP systems, or self-developed can really handle this work of providing fast data access. Or alternatively, they can just hire a data analyst or just consult with you on how to do data analytics in the right way for informed decision making.
Yeah,
As an option. However,
yeah,
Saurabh, when it comes to real practices, our listeners always ask about real examples because theory is theory, practice is practice. So let's learn from some examples. Maybe you could share from your own experience. Uh, Example where AI and especially data driven process made the supply chain more resilient and anti fragile.
well, I think talking about the supply chain, I'll give you two sort of references about how AI helped us. One which is not related to the supply chain,
Mm-hmm,
uh, and the other one where supply chain, where the AI use cases helped us become more intelligent and smart. So the first one is coming from my previous organization,
mm-hmm,
where this was. Uh, a manufacturing segment, manufacturing sector. And what used to happen that in the manufacturing sector, that there will be service centers.
mm-hmm,
Okay. Now customer visits the service center
mm-hmm,
and shares their opinion, shares their verbatim, but it was very difficult to interpret what actually the customers are talking about, whether they
mm-hmm,
are appreciating the service or whether they have the complaints, whether they are talking about they are sharing certain feedback which we can implement in the manufacturing in the product design later. So, quote in quote, it was very difficult to interpret and get
mm-hmm,
the voice of customers.
mm-hmm,
Uh, and if you just, get the scale of it, it was in the scale of more than 100,000 service center across the planet,
mm-hmm.
and each service center would have at least 50 customer in a day. So if you think that, if you get the scale of the data change here, even if there's one customer sharing his or her feedback at a service center about one or two products, it becomes at least 2 million responses in a day.
Wow.
Okay. So that was the scale of the data that we were getting, but we were not making use of it. It was more like a reactive approach, that once the customer has followed up on their feedbacks, then only the teams would wake up, go back to the feedback, and see exactly what they were talking about. So we thought of implementing the voice of customer, thought of building this as a product itself. It required us to, first of all, capture all the data in the right format.
Mm-hmm,
Second stage was cleaning the data, so that we eliminate the noise and make sure that the data which gets fed into a model is clean. And we implemented the NLP models to understand, to get the sense of what customers are talking about, right? So the next challenge was not just to interpret the data in the format and get a high level sense. It was also important to group them into certain clusters and route that feedback to the respective teams, so
mm-hmm,
that they have this data available on their table whenever they want to access. Okay. Now and it was very it was a big cultural shift in the organization, because most of the time the product designs and the service teams, they are not ready to receive the feedback from someone internal or a technology team, technology department of the organization. They have all the lumps of data, piles of data sitting on their sides, but they will go and look into the data whenever they want to look into it, or
mm-hmm,
whenever there's an escalation. Now this is something which is coming. For example, if the feedback is on finance, the finance team will get the notification that in the last 1 week there were these many feedbacks about the pricing, or about certain price variance. And similarly with the service, with the product design, with the intelligence. So I think that was a huge cultural shift. Now this NLP model was doing the sentimental analysis, was doing the topic identification. Based on the topic identification, we will map the team, and they will get the notification over emails that this is what our customers are talking about. Now, this helped us in two ways. Number one, when we talk about the value systems of the company, we say customer is at the center and all the functions of the organization revolve around them.
Mhm.
So we were sort of not, I mean, we created a product which was so close to this value that everything revolves around customer, and each and every one in the organization globally will have to address the comments or feedbacks of the customers which we are receiving on a daily basis. Number two was the we connected all the functions together with the feedback and the voice of the customers. So this voice of the customer as a product itself was a huge was very well received in the organization, even with the senior management, that this helped us bring all the functions together and connect it with the customer's voice. So it was an AI model, NLP model, sentimental analysis, topic identification, but it help the organization to come together and service the customers. So this was one of the beautiful use case which which I was part of. I was leading this team of data scientists, and we implemented this at scale, created dashboards for HR, people, for finance, technology, services, product design, research, everyone. Now, the second one, which I would like to highlight, is about the supply chain, which in my current position as the co-founder of Frogo, when we started our dark store networks, the biggest need of running the stores, the small micro stores versus the large warehouses, is to maintain the inventory and and do the best utilization of the capacity, whatever is available. At warehouse, things, the real estate, the space is available at scale, but it is not the same luxury is not available in the micro
Mhm.
stores. The best you can optimize whatever your fast moving stock is, units are, and in what capacity, in what quantity you need to put them. So for that, we started experimenting with certain AI based solutions, and finally uh, we did some and it was more like no, I wouldn't say it's a stopgap solution. It was more like a smart implementations of AI model with the descriptive knowledge that we had about our micro stores. That okay, so this is something that we need to have at this location, and what the units, the volume of the inventory, and the what proportion, what assortment of the SKUs we need to have at a particular store, and then we give it as an intelligence, or say as an information to the store staffs, and then it was up to them that how much they want to stock in that particular store. But they already had a sort of a draft or a template that this much of the stock or this much of the inventory they need to have in the stock to make sure that they are able to run the operations fine for the next 5 to 7 days. So it again, the AI implementation was one part, but I think what we were able to optimize is the flow of inventory, our vehicle optimization, and our the inventory at the warehouses as well. And for the stores, it was very good because they had a good templatic view of what inventory is going to have is good they are going to have in their stores. So that helped us optimize the space, optimize the vehicle utilization, optimize the replenishment schedules, and optimize the inventory at the micro stores.
I can say sort of that basically I couldn't even imagine that there are so many use cases and application cases for data in real business. And thanks a lot for sharing such a detailed review of what you've already done to different domains based on your real examples, because it's valuable for our listeners and those especially who are just on their way to start dealing with data correctly. And this is really important to know that before you go with this data, first identify the very use case you're willing to begin with. So that's great that you've really constructively determined the steps that should be taken, right, and what you should do next, and some examples of tools and practices you applied. So thanks a lot for this. When we're talking about the researches and basically the very webinars based on investigations and real time practices, according to McKinsey review, by 2030, India's economy could grow by $7 trillion, driven mainly by e-commerce, urban construction, travel, tourism, and automotive sector. All in all, they together should make up about 70% of this growth, which is really exciting. And when knowing that, you really it's hard for you to keep calling India a developing country, because it's clear that the country is stepping into the league of global economics like the United States of America and China. So when it comes to data usage should be responsible, and this is a huge part of say discussion on data topic, ethical usage of data. So, Saurabh, when it comes to your experience, what do you see as the most transformative way for companies to handle the ethical concerns when using data, and especially data for AI?
Yeah, absolutely. I think ethical AI, ethical usage of data is one of the most critical part. It may be not that critical around 10 years ago, but given the pace of advancement of AI and given the pace of the use cases which were unimaginable few years ago, the if I consider that pace, I think the usage of data, the ethical usage of data, the data integrity, the data governance is our responsibility. For a for us, the smallest of movement, if that gets compromised, it is very difficult to determine the repercussion and the quantum of impact it will have on the systems. The scale may be global as well.
Mm-hmm,
In bits or pieces, we have seen certain things. The financial institutions have got impacted because the data integrity was compromised, the data trust was
mm-hmm,
breached, and
mm-hmm,
the data governance layers were bypassed.
mm-hmm.
Okay. So I think, so your question was what we should be doing, or as a leadership, what should be the top call
Yes.
outs when it comes to the ethical usage of data.
Yeah.
So it may be hard step for now, and I think it's a very short answer which I always give for these questions, that it may be hard for us to accept, but the data usage and plus the AI implementations should be made regulatory. There should be regulations, and we small prediction projections models are still fine, but and I see there are certain steps being taken by the countries to lay down the AI laws, the data integrity laws, and I think the world is coming together, the countries are coming together to frame the laws in that aspect, also getting into the partnership mode, that what exposure of data will they allow once the data crosses the country, the geographical boundaries. For
Mm-hmm.
example, in India, earlier there wasn't a norm. I mean, Indian data from Indian companies can be stored anywhere. However, a couple of years back, there was the government passed the IT Act, which said that the business critical and the mission critical data cannot go outside the country. This includes our PII, the personal information. This includes our financial information, and I think the same law, same acts are getting implemented across the globe by different countries in their own respective way. Now, coming back to my previous point, why it may be hard. This is because the researchers are researching, the technologists are building the models. Okay, the business is generating data. The challenge which the industry has, that if we do not consume this data, after some time this data may go stale. This may not be relevant. The trends are changing every single hour. So better consume this data, get some intelligence, and start applying back to the business. This is why I say it might be hard to follow all the regulations, but in the interest of humanity, in the interest of what may come in the future, the regulations are important. Any implementation of AI, and AI is a scientific intervention in a particular process. Any implementation of AI needs to be signed off after a certain scale. We measure the impact volume, how much, what will be the impact of a particular AI model. So if that model crosses that impact stage, it may be number of users, or it may be a dollar value, it may be something that we need to arrive at. After that, it needs to be regulated and it needs to be signed off by the concerned authorities. Then only it should be allowed to be made public, or say the consumption of that particular model slash the system has to be made public. So that's what my personal view stands. I'm more than happy to promote and advocate the day-to-day business use cases where the data just needs to be cleansed, and it should be ethically used in the system as long as it is for internal consumption. But the moment it crosses the guardrails, the boundaries of the organization, the moment it is open for public consumption, that is where the regulation has to be extremely strict, so that the unforeseen implementations or the impact of those AI systems should not impact the mankind, the humans. Everyone is not as intelligent or say aware about the AI, the challenges it creates at times. I see a lot of people around. They enjoy and they love. They even sometimes it's their business to charge, and they create the fake images. So, and it's all AI generated. Something that may not be the correct, may not have happened or may not be correct, gets circulated in the society and creates a wrong perspective, wrong understanding about certain event, certain personality, certain news. So it would be my request to the governance through your podcast that the regulations of the AI implementation should be extremely hard. Okay, let the technologists work, let the researchers work, let the technology be for the betterment of the society. But if these models are left open for consumption by someone who doesn't understand the implications of AI, it will be very dangerous. So please, please, please start taking this very responsibly, the ethical consumption of data and the responsible AI implementation.
Fully agree, and your words are already supported by different businesses. For instance, the social media network LinkedIn, they've launched a new feature which is determined to identify the origination for image and picture content, video, photo, and files. So once you upload the photo, say for your post, LinkedIn will put an icon where you can open and identify what's the source of origination for this photo. And if it's AI generated, the system which is integrated to LinkedIn right now will show you the identification, which is really a useful and wise approach to this responsible data usage, especially when it comes to authors' rights and intellectual property. So, fully agree with all your thoughts you shared with us, Saurabh. And I've heard and I read about the fact that basically India is the country of talents. And right now, the country has one of the highest AI skill penetration rates globally, second only to the United States. And it's also obvious after I read different articles, researches, and reports that the country is home to nearly a third of the world's STEM graduates, which is really a huge population volume. And this talent is already driving innovation in electric vehicles, in pharma, and beyond. And we should really understand that having such a great driver for economics really can lead in a couple of years to great results, which we can not argue with. So as we move towards Industry 5.0 and discussing the skills that matter, which human-centric skill In your opinion, Saurabh, what you think will be most critical, not only in India but globally in the upcoming years, and why?
Well, I think we have already seen through the years of Industry 4.0, uh, which was more around automation, right? The where we are progressing is the Industry 5.0, if I may call it. It will be more centered around collaboration.
Hmm.
Okay, things will be more connected that we've already seen. However, people if the mindset, if the cultural elements don't collaborate, don't connect, it's very difficult to get the success out of those systems. So it's the collaboration between the humans and machines, and empathy will become the most critical skill. I mean, last week I was reading that uh, countries have started thinking about having an AI based minister in their governance,
Yep.
right?
An example of Albania, right? A great
Albania.
one. Yep.
So it's a very typical example of how the collaboration between the humans and machines will work, because if one of the element fails in such systems, uh, you never know, the something that we were trying to defend ourselves from becomes the feature of the product, right?
Yes.
So if the empathy is not there, or say if the understanding of the folks who are building these systems, if they are not empathetic, they are not getting that holistic view of how globally this particular creation of theirs will impact, then I think we are just defeating the objectives and building more and more smart machines which will
Hmm.
have one day to overpower the humans who have created them.
Yes.
Right. So I think we need to empathize while driving these transformational projects, and design systems that people can trust and adopt and collaborate and amplify with comfort, with the right set of awareness, with the right set of comfort. And machines, they may optimize the processes, but empathy will optimize adoption over time in the coming years, I believe.
At least we work with people around ourselves, right? Until machines fully replace us, but I'm sure it's just the very, very long away future, not even decades, but maybe centuries from nowadays. Thanks a lot for the recommendations, for vision, Sorop. It's very a wise approach to understand how it's better to upgrade yourself as a professional to be on demand in the market and really understand the market needs, trends, and what the current industrial revolution asks you to get prepared for. We've discussed a lot about data. We discussed a lot about main peculiarities of doing business in India as a really fast developing country, which is stepping the footsteps of global big sharks in economics. And the very, say, important conclusion for this discussion should be how we should create this mindset that would allow us to follow the way of data driven decision making, at least for our businesses. Or maybe to start with your personal experience. A data driven mindset really helps companies link information with performance. And if we think about this case, each of us already practices this every day. I know I do, at least myself, whether it's comparing vendors before choosing a service, or maybe even checking prices before booking a travel, or sometimes even weighing options for my grocery store. Data shapes my choice, and I bet that companies and businesses should do the same. They are no different. But every culture starts with one example. And in business, that example comes from the habits of its leaders. So, Saurabh, a question to you as a leader of your organization. What one habit should founders or leaders develop to foster a culture of data driven decision making from day one to create and form this data driven mindset in the entire organization?
Sure. So I think great question. And My previous startup was totally uh, based on this particular central idea that how
Mm-hmm.
the leaders should equip themselves to build data driven organizations.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things which I consistently vouched for is leaders who wish to build data driven culture need to be great storytellers.
Mm-hmm.
They need to ask right questions,
Mm-hmm.
and they should be able to tell a proper stitched story with data and set an example for the organization that if my leadership can talk fluently about the data with data,
Mm-hmm.
this practice slowly becomes the culture. It's a small change which the leaders can bring. Otherwise, it's very easy to start a data literacy program. It's a no-brainer to bring in an agency or a group of trainers who can train their teams on the data literacy, data analysis. But that is not the end of the story. Data literacy program is just a one small bead of the entire story. The it when only when it becomes the habit, only when it gets embedded deep into the culture, and that's when we call it's a data driven culture. Now data driven culture is not about only talking in terms of data, that okay Renata, this is 3:30 now here in ist, we have already talked about 7 to 8 questions. That is probably it will make sense for both of us, but I think at the organization standpoint, the decisions when they're backed with data, when you know both the sides, well, if we go take this route, then these are the pros, these are the cons, and all are supported with data. I think that is the culture that we want to be in. However, there are the counter view of the same story tells that only when we become more and more data driven, we tend to look what happened in the past, because the data traces that we have in the hand right now is based on our past history. But that's when I used to tell that data driven culture doesn't only talks about the historical representation of the data in a particular format, it also gives you that mindset that you should be able to project or see with a certain confidence into the future, that how this particular process will work, how this data will flow, or something related to that, so that you should be able to present a particular story supported with data, and should be able to make a strong intuition into the future. And this is what the data driven culture will be. It's not only data literacy, it's not only the historical presentation of data, it's the ability to talk with data points. It's the ability to talk with, say for example, a statement could be that my with 80% of confidence, my next say process will be efficient by this much percentage, supported with the historical data. But if we do this much of optimization, that is the percentage we can achieve in the productivity in future. So I think being very, very realistic, and also adopting a very realistic and practical approach, uh, we tend to. And so, anyways, I think I'm digressing from the topic a bit, but I'll stick to the point that data-driven culture will require the leaders to set an example through their own way of telling the stories, or say driving the meetings with data points, and then rest of the things for required for the teams to get enabled on data analysis and data lingos can be done through the data literacy programs. However, it's the entire organizational level responsibility to start talking in terms of data, getting more and more intelligence, and data democratization that we discussed some time back becomes an essential backbone of driving the data driven culture in the organizations.
Fully agree, and this is a great option that you share it a lot right now with the audience. And I'm sure that there are some other people who love not only listen but read and check and take this experience away for them in order to apply in the long run. And for instance, for me, I've always turned to books as my main teachers, and most of the skills and ideas I use in my work come from pages I've read and applied in real life. And when it comes to books, what I like about them is the way they force you to slow down and think, right? Like we're doing right away. We're interacting with you, we're discussing with you something, right? In some constructive thinking is entering the stage to help analyze and make some conclusions. Unlike Gen AI tools, unfortunately, which can hand you quick answers but don't always help you develop constructive thinking. A great, say, a great option for today's discussion is to support this listening with good reading. Saurabh, I know that you are an author and you've written a lot of books right now related to the topics we're discussing today. For someone new to your work, I mean, in data and leadership and ethical usage of AI, which of your books best captures your vision for data, AI, and culture, and why? Recommend us something to read from your library, and we will gladly take them to our storage and maybe reading in the upcoming books.
Sure. I think there are a lot of good books available, and all of them talk about the common set of practices that while using data or building the AI systems, we have to be responsible. The data needs to be governed, and however, a couple of books which I found really useful lately of late is Nitin Seth's book "Winning in the Digital Age."
Mm-hmm.
Uh, this was his first book, and the next book is Human Edge in the AI, in the age of AI, I believe, in the age of AI. Yes, these two books beautifully capture the whole concept of how the mindset evolution needs to happen. Uh, when you are building digital systems, digital infrastructure which are producing data, now you have volumes of data, how that needs to be sorted, that needs to be built into defensive and offensive strategy. Now, defensive is something that setting the data governance policies, setting the right data infrastructure, the teams who will manage the data flow, consumption, and then the offensive, which is the utilization, the consumption of data. It may be the consumption may come in the format of business intelligence. It may come in the form of data democratization
Mm-hmm.
uh, in channels through the power users. It may come in the form of AI implementations and exposing the data for different systems and different platforms. So I think it helps the leadership to get into the right mindset, the frame of mind to maneuver the organization in a proper format and in a disciplined way. In addition, it also makes the middle management ready, first of all, to understand what the management is thinking and in which direction our data strategy is shaping up. Second is the other thing is, once we have the alignment on the business and the technology sides,
Mm-hmm.
then driving such data programs becomes very easy, because everyone aligns with the outcomes, the impact of these businesses or say these programs. And that alignment is very important for the large scale implementations of the data products, the BI programs, as well as the AI systems. Now, one of the things that we hear quite often is AI the bubble, or is why most of the AI use cases are failing. There could be numerous reasons behind those failures. It could be that use case alignment, it could be the success criteria was not correctly set, or it may be the data was not ready or not available. So I think this again comes back to the point that how are these AI implementations framed, discussed, right? So the boardroom meetings and the meetings between the business sponsors and the technologists, how what was the alignment there in those meetings or not? So coming back to the books, I think these books which I just quoted, they make the management ready, they keep the leadership also in the proper mindset, that before taking such steps they need to have the plan in mind, that how the digital to data to AI transformation has to happen in the organization.
Sort of, thanks a lot. Sometimes sharing what you're reading is really kind of personal, but you've nailed it. So thanks. I'm sure that the listeners will appreciate your vision and your recommendations on the knowledge to form this constructive thinking. I wish we could talk even longer. However, it's time to wrap up our discussion, unfortunately. Today's webinar has highlighted India's role in global development, its Industry 5.0 journey, and the rise of data driven mindset across business. And before we close, Saurabh, could you share, please, your vision for the future with our listeners, looking ahead? What excites you most about the convergence of AI, data, and product thinking in India, or maybe globally, depending on what you'd like to share?
Well, I think the uniqueness that we have in the processes built out of India uh, are are coming out of the diversity,
Mhm.
coming out of the the ever evolving infrastructure and the very dynamic elements which build the uniqueness in any processes. And the same holds true for the implementations that we do in the data space and the AI space. So I think, and that takes us from being a very following a very, or say, getting started from a unique approach all the way till the generic approach, which is uh, made for the world. So I think that excites me, that building something coming or say building something in India, but building it for the world, taking into consideration all sort of use cases, and making sure that these models, these systems hold strong, hold true, given any level of diversity and given any level of variance. So I'm very excited to see this, the new age startups who are building very strong, very robust AI systems, and irrespective of uh, the situational awareness and the localization uh, standpoint, I think they are very much applicable across different use cases which may happen at any corner of the globe. So I think, yeah, this diversity and the ever evolving elements which are supporting this mindset to build it for the world is something to watch out for in the future.
Constant to get it and to watch it. To be honest, I hope I'll still be alive when AI will definitely become the assistant of human on a regular basis, on real involvement, not just data usage, not just internet and electronic experiments with any cases, but real practices based on machine and robotics technologies. So hope so, but time will show. So we'll see. Saurabh, thanks a lot for being with us within the session. I'm really happy and I appreciate the chance to communicate with you today, to receive the data and real practices based experience from you, from your business, from your years of wisdom. As we close, this is a short, quick note to our listeners: like, comment, repost, and share with your colleagues and maybe even friends, those who are in data and are looking for new ideas. And remember, in the race for success, it's not only about education, but about building a data driven mindset for data decisions. So, bye for now. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Bye bye.
Bye.